Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. You know, if you've been watching the news lately, it feels like world events are just moving at a dizzying pace, right? Well, today we're unpacking this incredibly complex global news environment, and we're doing it strictly by the facts. No political spin, just what you need to know. What we're really examining today is this fascinating concept of the global geopolitical ripple effect. It's this idea that a single missile launch in one hemisphere can literally alter shipping routes, shift diplomatic relations across the globe, and eventually impact your everyday life. So we're going to trace these ripples, starting from active conflict zones all the way to some truly mind-blowing medical innovations. All right, let's dive right in. Here is our roadmap for today. We're kicking things off with a crisis in the street. Then we'll zoom out to global diplomacy and conflict. Third, we're looking at U.S. policy and elections. And finally, we'll wrap things up with tech, cyber, and health.
Starting off with Section 1, Crisis in the Strait, the geopolitical choke point.
Now, if you track global supply chains at all, you already know the Strait of Hormuz is an absolutely vital artery for energy markets. So any instability there creates this rapid chain reaction, which is exactly what we're seeing unfold right now. Let's walk through how this happened. First, Iran fired 2 ballistic missiles near the strait. Naturally, that immediate threat triggered the United Arab Emirates to activate their air defenses. And as a direct result of all this danger in the water, CNN's data shows that Iran has partially lost control of the route because global shipping transits are quickly shifting over to Omani channels just to stay safe. And finally, you get the diplomatic fallout. U.S. officials are now voicing strong opposition to a proposed deal between Oman and Iran over joint management and fee collection in the strait. So one military action literally creates an immediate logistical and diplomatic cascade.
To really wrap your head around this, you have to look at the incredibly complex web of players involved here. You've got Iran taking kinetic action and evaluating new targets. You have the UAE on the defensive. You've got Oman trying to negotiate this management deal, which, again, the U.S. is actively opposing. But then there's Iraq. Caught right in the middle of this maritime chaos, Iraq is actually asking for special transit status just to protect its oil exports. In fact, Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Baghir Khalibafah recently met with officials in Baghdad about this exact issue. It is a crowded, super high-stakes chessboard right now.
But the potential for escalation goes way beyond just shipping lanes. Reports are showing that Iranian military forces have been evaluating new potential targets if things escalate further. Specifically, they're looking at U.S. assets in southeastern Europe and, perhaps even more alarmingly for the global economy, undersea fiber optic cables. I really want you to pause and think about this for a second. What actually happens to the world if undersea internet cables become military targets? Think about how much of our global financial system, our communication networks, and your own daily connectivity relies on these physical cables just sitting on the ocean floor. It connects a regional conflict directly to the device you were using to listen to this right now. The ripple effect here could be a total digital earthquake. Also in the region, following their internal conduct reviews, the Israeli military has announced they are opening criminal investigations into specific civilian and paramedic deaths in Gaza. We'll be watching very closely as these formal legal proceedings and internal military accountabilities play out on the ground. Moving on to Section 2, Global Diplomacy and Conflict, or the broadening stage. As we zoom out from the Middle East, we're really looking at a split screen of the current global dynamic. On one hand, you've got some very sharp escalation. France just ordered the expulsion of 2 Iranian diplomats in a tit-for-tat move after Iran expelled French staff. On top of that, Russian foreign ministry statements bluntly warned that any direct UK support for long-range strikes in Ukraine will be treated as direct participation in the conflict. But on the flip side, we're actually seeing some real breakthroughs. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, was finally granted access to verify stored uranium metal and graphite at nuclear-related sites over in Syria. Plus, reports are indicating that U.S. administrative efforts are actively underway to arrange a potential diplomatic summit with North Korean leadership this autumn. So it's a world that's simultaneously edging closer to the brink in some areas, while finding these rare diplomatic footholds in others. Adding another layer to this complex diplomatic web, the U.S. State Department just issued sanctions against the president of the International Criminal Court, Tomoko Akane. Now, impartially speaking, this is a highly unprecedented move against the leadership of an international judicial body, and it has already triggered global backlash, drawing official, formal criticism from Japan's foreign ministry.
All right, shifting gears to Section 3, U.S. policy and elections, looking at domestic impacts.
As global events shape domestic realities, what's really interesting to note here is the specificity of this number, 1,200. The United States has finalized a bilateral migration agreement where the nation of Liberia has agreed to receive up to 1,200 deportees from the U.S. over the course of the next year. It really highlights the very concrete logistical realities of the international border and migration policies currently being negotiated. Domestically, we are seeing some other major shifts too. A recent federal ruling just cleared the way for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to officially end temporary protected legal status for thousands of Ethiopian nationals. And on the electoral front, the political map for the upcoming cycle is finally locking into place. Key primary election results have solidified major Senate and gubernatorial matchups in Alaska, Florida, and Wyoming. The board is officially set for those crucial races. And finally, Section 4, Tech, Cyber, and Health, looking at our future frontiers. This number, 17, represents a massive crackdown in the digital realm. The U.S. Department of Justice just unsealed updated indictments against 17 individuals. And these folks are directly linked to sprawling global cyber theft operations explicitly targeting government agencies and universities. It's a pretty stark reminder that modern infrastructure and institutional knowledge are under constant, sophisticated digital siege. But, we absolutely do not want to leave you only with threats and conflicts today, because human innovation is advancing just as rapidly. Get this, shares of Moderna jumped significantly following clinical data updates surrounding the development of personalized cancer vaccines. This is not science fiction. This is the market reacting to hard data showing that we are getting closer to vaccines tailored specifically to an individual's unique cancer profile. That is a real game changer. Which leaves us with this final thought. How fast will personalized medicine actually shape our future? We started this explainer looking at ballistic missiles and global shipping crises, but we end on the incredible promise of personalized cures. The world is deeply interconnected and full of complex challenges, sure, but it's also bounded by breathtaking human ingenuity. Keep this question in mind as you watch the news this week. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack these incredible sources today, and keep looking for the structure behind the headlines.